one thing I found out during the course of the pro review is that the filter switch is actually controlling a solenoid, a relay. Now, without getting too technical and boring here, there are several ways to switch audio in and out of a system. One involves electronic parts like CMOS switches or voltage-controlled amplifiers or things like that. But as soon as you get those electrons involved, you have the opportunity for distortion, you have the opportunity for noise, whereas a relay is just basically like having a piece of wire or a mechanical switch. Now, relays cost more, but they don't have noise, they don't have distortion, they just can't. The only possible thing you could say about a relay is that it's a mechanical device and therefore it will fail. But these things are rated at tens or actually hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of cycles. So if you do the math, you turn it off 20 times a day and you'll be dead long before your relay will. There are some other little touches on this, like for example, the knobs. It's a small thing, but it has a little raised rubber ring around it. And so you can have sweaty hands, or you can be like not too careful with the knob and it won't slip. You won't hit it by accident. It has insert jacks on the input, so if you have some favorite old Pultec equalizer or vintage LA2A compressor or something like that, so, or some classic wah-wah, or, it's just some piece of analog gear you want to put in there, it's very easy to do. You can do it at the interface itself. Now, of course, with Pro Tools and most other programs, you can always feed into an interface output and come back in and apply it like a plug-in or something like that, but it's just a much more direct way to do it like this. Having reverb in there so that the singer can have reverb when they're monitoring. I mean, that again may seem like a small thing. It's not to the singer. The singer wants to hear that reverb on their voice. So all those little things kind of add up for sure. I think a lot of the people reading the review understand that Avid is making a serious move to produce interfaces that are, that can stand on their own. And certainly, the more I took it apart and investigated it and poked and prodded, the more I found that to be the case.
So Craig, you talked about how all these little things add up to make a big difference. Are there any other little things within the product that are going to really matter to me as a user day in and day out?
Yeah, actually, one thing is that this has MIDI. It's on a breakout cable, but it does have MIDI. There are quite a few audio interfaces these days that don't have MIDI. And I mean, I can see why. Again, it's a cost-saving measure, and if you're just trying to stick in a couple mics, that's fine. But there are control surfaces. There's sequencers sending things out to drum machines. I mean, MIDI's still, MIDI's still very important. I mean, as Alan Parsons says on his DVD, he doesn't think there's been a pop record in the last 20 years that didn't have MIDI in its DNA somewhere. So, you don't have to worry about getting another interface just to handle the MIDI. So that's kind of nice. It does have word clock. So if you need to sync it with other digital gear, you do have that option. And then there's some really absurd little things, but they make a difference sometimes, which is there's a front panel switch to go between the mic input on the front and the input on the back. And, but it's glitchless, so you can use it as a mic mute. So if you're recording somebody with the mic and you just want to cut it out while you're recording with the other input, you can just hit that rear panel button and don't have anything connected, and that works. And in fact, that was something that was pointed out in the pro review by John Chappell, who's another person at Harmony Central. He wrote in, he said, hey, Craig, did you know you could do this? And it's like, no, I didn't actually, but that's really kind of a cool feature. So there's probably some other things like that. Of course, the routing in the applet is pretty nice. The mixer application that comes with it, so you can do the monitoring and that sort of thing. It's logically laid out. It looks nice, and you can drop it. It'll probably still survive. You'd probably dent it, but I like those kind of aspects. I really don't like to have to think about stuff too much, especially you're creating music. You don't want to have to be worrying about things like that, whether your fingers are going to slip off the knob and whether bringing the filter is going to make a click, things like that. And I really haven't had any worries with the Mbox Pro at all. It's easy to forget about, and I think that's a compliment.